Helldivers, listen to this. Today's the big day. We have a lot of stuff to talk about in this here video. We have the release of the biggest update this game has ever seen. 1.95 gigabytes to be exact. That's a lot for some balances. But heed this warning. This is quite the update. So this video will probably be a tad longer than my usual stuff, but I'll try to keep it swift. So let us start with this patch, shall we? I play on the PlayStation 5, but I read the patch notes over on the Steam News tab. I'll have links in the description, but there are 2 blog posts up today. The first post is CCO Pilstead himself, simply explaining the reasoning behind some of the changes and thanking us for our patience, opinions, and concerns. Now to the patch notes themselves. First, you know it's a big one when we go from version 1.0000305 to version 1.0000400 in one patch. What I'm going to do is basically read everything. So, here we go. Overview. For this patch, some of the major areas of interest are visible supply lines and attack origins in the Galactic War. Stratagem, weapon, planet and enemy balancing updates, various crash fixes, stability improvements, and other updates. Invite-only lobby creation, the rightmost option in the lobby settings, currently only localized in English, additional language coming in the next patch. So let's start with the balancing, shall we? Go with stratagem balances and changes with this patch. With these balance changes, we wanted to buff up some of the weaker stratagems to make them more viable, and add more possibilities for varieties in the loadouts. We also changed a few to make them more consistent, but the goal was to keep a similar or higher power level. We are looking into stratagems more to see if there are any other stratagems that might need some buffs or changes to make them more viable. We also want to be better at explaining what our goals are with the changes. Please see the linked blog post for more information. A/MLS 4x Rocket Sentry, decreased spread, prioritize larger targets, increased target range from 75 to 100 meters, decreased rocket per salvo 2 to 1 to get better ammo economy, increased explosion radius from 1 meter to 4 meters, wow. Decreased explosion armor penetration. Explosion can no longer damage heavy armor enemies, but the projectile still has enough AP to damage heavily armored targets. Increased projectile damage from 200 to 300. AMG 43 Machine Gun Sentry. Reduce the cooldown from 180 seconds to 120 seconds. Oh, this next one's gonna be a mouthful. AMG 43 Machine Gun Sentry. AG 16 Gatling Sentry. AMLS 4 times Rocket Sentry. AAC 8 Autocannon Sentry. AM12 Mortar Sentry. AM23 EMS Mortar Sentry. Increased durability from 0% to 80%. EMG 101 HMG Emplacement. Increase rotation speed by 100%. Anti-personnel minefield is going to increase from 250 to 350 damage. The incendiary mines have seen an explosive damage from 150 to 210. The orbital Gatling has increased fire rate by 25%, increased rounds per salvo from 30 to 60, increased armor penetration. It can now damage heavy armored enemies. Decreased cooldown from 80 seconds to 70 seconds. The orbital precision strike has a decreased cooldown from 100 seconds to 90 seconds, and decreased call-in time from 4 seconds to 2. And the orbital airburst strike has decreased cooldown from 120 seconds to 100 seconds. Eagle 110mm rocket pods. While these changes may look like straight up nerf, that is not the intention. Please see the blog post for more information. Improved targeting. Increased projectile armor penetration. Now does 100% damage to heavily armored enemies instead of 50%. Decreased projectile damage 600 to 250 to compensate for the improved targeting and the extra damage. Fair enough. Decreased explosion armor penetration. Explosion can no longer damage heavily armored enemies. The Eagle Strafing Run has had its uses increased from 3 to 4, and can now damage heavily armored enemies. Nice. The GL-21 grenade launcher has its explosive damage increased from 350 to 400. The MG-206 heavy machine gun has increased projectile damage from 100 to 150, increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 23 to 33%, and has a decreased fire rate. And now, instead of having 450, 750, and 900, it has 450, 600, and 750. Fair enough. Decreased reload time from 7 to 5.5 seconds, and it has an increased stagger strength. The MG43 machine gun, however, has a decreased reload time from 4 to 3.5 seconds, and increased max amount of magazines from 3 to 4. Lovely stuff. MG43 machine gun, the AMG43 machine gun Century, and the G16 Gatling Century and XO45 Patriot Exosuit Gatling has increased projectile damage from 80 to 90. Increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 7.5 to 25%. That's quite the boost. Now the AR-23 Liberator, the Stalwart, and the Guard Dog has increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 10 to 23%. And the Liberator Concussive has also seen increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 25 to 35%. The Adjudicator, everybody's favorite gun, has seen an increased magazine capacity from 25 to 30. That's cool. And an increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 10 to 20%. Now the Tenderizer has increased projectile damage from 60 to 95, and increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 10 to 17%, but it's had its ammo decreased from 35 to 30, and the number of magazines from 10 to 8. But it's also had an increase in stagger strength. The Plas 101 Purifier has seen an increased projectile armor penetration to be the same as explosive, and decreased explosion damage fall off. Pretty cool stuff. The Explosive Crossbow, something that I will never use, has seen increased explosive armor penetration to be the same as the projectile. Increased demolition strength, can destroy bug holes and butt fabricated buildings. I didn't realize it didn't do that. That makes the whole thing completely useless. At least it's useful now, and it's added medium penetration tag. The R36 Eruptor has seen a total damage go from 420 to 570 damage per shot, and the Diligence has seen an increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 10 to 25%. Now, the durable body parts means that some enemies have durable body parts that receive only a portion of base damage from projectiles. And then we've got a little other section here saying updated recoil stance modifiers. We made changes to the recoil stance modifiers to make them more consistent and also reward being prone more. Almost all of them will improve the recoil, and only a 2 have been made worse. What? That sentence doesn't make any sense. Let me say it slower. Almost all of them will improve the recoil, and only a 2 have been made worse. And only by 10%. Anyway, moving on now to the gameplay section. General, they've removed the modifier AA Defenses, reducing stratagems slots by 1. And they said here, we want to look over the operation modifiers in future. Right now there are too few of them, which become repetitive, and the ones we have do not create variety or promote different playstyles. For now, we remove this one because it only encourages the player to bring the best stratagems and does not promote variety. They have disabled the Retrieve Essential Personnel Defend event for the time being. It said here that it has been deemed not fun enough or performing as well as they want it to, and this is to give it the proper attention and care it deserves. It says here, Super Samples. Super Samples now spawn on difficulty 6. The reason for this change is that they feel the existence of only difficulty 7 plus forced players to play the game on a harder difficulty than they wanted to comfortably play on. That's nice. The Chief Artillery stratagem is no longer blocked by stratagem jammers or ion storms, and is available after the mission timer ends and the destroyer leaves close orbit. Now, hot damn, I love that one. Enemies in melee range of the gate in evacuate high-value asset missions will now attack it more consistently. Ooh. Added the ability to chat from the in-game menus and mission loading screens. I didn't realize you couldn't anyway. Updated some first-person crosshairs to improve readability. Love that. Now we got some social stuff. Careful now, there's a lot of this. Invite-only lobbies are now supported. That's it. In armors, we have the introduction of the new armor passive, Peak Physique. Now we know this is coming in the new Warband. As of writing this current section of the news video, I haven't actually been able to look at the new Warband as it's not in the game just yet. Now we got some stuff here about planets and hazards. Spike Plant. The spike plant that appears on certain planets has been reworked. It no longer causes bleed or stellar drain if hit by the plant explosion or spikes. It now pops 3 times, sending spikes everywhere, dealing increased damage. That's nice. Fire Tornadoes. Fire Tornadoes have had their behavior changed. They should no longer feel like they actively respond to player movement, and should move more randomly. While a Fire Tornado storm takes place, enemy vision is reduced. The player vision is unaffected. Tremors. Tremors have had their spawnings tweaked and are to be slightly more random. Tremors have had their epicenter size and effect range increased also. And ion storms have added additional VFX. I guess that's so you can tell more that it's going on. Now we got some stuff here about visibility. A lot of planets have had their fog amounts tweaked. This is to be less harsh and dense. I like that because when you're playing in HDR, sometimes it's difficult to see anything on a foggy planet. They still intend for there to be foggier planets and worse visibility, but they say the balance was a bit off. Oh, there's a little bit here about unexploded hell bombs. The unexploded malfunctioning hell bombs can be sometimes found on planets will now explode immediately when hit with a strong explosion or heavy weaponry. That sounds dangerous. They will still have the same delay if hit by small arms fire. So that's like your pistols and your normal ARs, I guess, but if you hit it with a grenade launcher or a rocket launcher, it's going to go boom straight away. Now this bit I read earlier on, I like this bit a lot. Vegetation that's large enough to slow down enemies now has an extra function. This is so when you're inside the vegetation, enemies now detect you a bit more difficultly, making stealth play a bit more visible. This effect stacks with other detection-reducing effects, such as nighttime, being crouched or prone, or things such as the Scout Armor passive. That's pretty cool. Just a heads up, Helldivers. I know it's been a long one so far, but I think we're about just past the halfway point, so stick in there. This section now is about the enemies. The acid effect applied by hunters, bug mines, etc. now allow you to sprint while under the effect, and slows you by 30% instead of 50%. Duration has been increased from 3 to 4 seconds. These changes are intended to make it less punishing for players to be slowed while fighting the Terminids. This also allows them to use it in more places without making the experience very punishing. For example, the Bile Spewers. Armored enemy balancing. We have toned down the amount of heavily armored enemies like Bile Titans and Chargers on higher difficulties, and instead spawn more hordes of smaller enemies. The difference should be quite noticeable, and the amount should be at least 30% less than before during bug breaches. We have also toned down slightly how many hulks that spawn in for the automatons. Our intent is to ease up on the demand for anti-tank weapons, and by having more of the other enemies, give a better incentive for the group to bring stratagems and weapons to take care of hordes. Patrol spawning is now back to how it worked before patch 1.000.300, with some slight tweaks, so that the levels are less empty if you are far away from important locations with enemy presence. Stunning has been changed slightly as well. Medium and large sized enemies now don't get stunned as easily. This will not affect the stratagems that stun, and will mostly affect how easily the pummeler can stun larger enemies. Now we've got some Terminid changes here too. Bile Spewers and Nursing Spewers. Spewers will now get slowed if they lose a leg. Spear Puke now applies the acid effect. Spear Puke can now only damage Helldivers up to 4 times per second, and the Helldiver cannot take damage multiple times from the same projectile. This should reduce instances where you are instantly killed by them. The Bile Titan. The Bile Titan's head is slightly durable against weaker anti-tank weapons. It's not a large change and will mostly matter for weapons like the Railgun. The Bile Titan's puke can now only affect the Helldiver 4 times per second, and the Helldiver cannot take damage multiple times with the same projectile. The damage is still very deadly, so running through the puke is not recommended. The puke now also has a bigger spread. Oh god, these titans are going to be dangerous. This bit I like a lot. The Charger Behemoth has now been added to higher difficulties. This enables us to spawn fewer chargers, but still retain the difficulty. Chargers will now only show bleed-out effects from the body if the bleed-out state is started, and it can still show bleed-out effects from the mouth without having started the bleed-out state. Now I've got some Automaton Changes. The Hulk Scorcher. The Hulk's flamethrower now does less damage and cannot damage a Helldiver more than 4 times per second. In addition, the Helldiver cannot be damaged multiple times by the same flame projectile. This should reduce instances where you are killed instantly by it. The Automaton Tanks. The tank armor value on the front has been lowered to be the same as the non-vent sections on the rear. The intent was initially that it was supposed to be more armored in the front, but the visual language did not show that. Okay, fair enough. The vents on the back of the tank turret still have the same armor value as before, but will check for explosion directions correctly now, whatever that means. The damage of exploding automaton jump packs has been decreased by 50%. It will set you on fire though. Now we're moving on to the section called Galactic War. Introducing supply lines and origin of attack. Supply lines were previously not shown on the Galactic War map to reduce clutter and to improve readability. However, based on the feedback from our community, we have made an implementation showing them on the map. This solution tries to maintain the general readability while still exposing the system to players in the game. You will now also be able to see which planet an attack is originating from, potentially allowing the community to stop an attack at its source. We have also updated visuals in the sector and planet info pop-ups. That's pretty nice. Ooh, this one's one that everyone's been wanting about in fixes. The FAF-14 Spear. Targeting has been reworked and should now function much better. However, it has lost the ability to target automaton spawners. This is not intended and will be fixed in the future. Bloody hell. Intense heat and extreme cold environmental modifiers will now affect the quasar cannon's reload speed and will show correctly in the HUD. On cold planets, the reload speed has been minus 2.5 seconds and up to 2.5 seconds on hot planets. The radar pulse that detects enemies on the minimap is now visible. Most of the automaton weapons have gotten tighter limits on how much the projectile they shoot can deviate from its weapon's muzzle angle. What this means is the situation where Devastators shoot sideways and similar should be fixed. I didn't realize that happened. The weapons of the exosuits are now allowed small adjustments in the angle they fire the projectiles versus the muzzle angle. This should make their weapons more accurate. The ballistic shield now collides with grenades. The unblock button should no longer disappear in the social menu. Blocked players can no longer join blockers' lobbies through recent players. They fixed a bug where enemies killed, missions played, and missions completed stats would not be properly displayed in the armory. Oh, there's a lot of these. Fixed issues where the player can throw an unlimited amount of grenades by pressing the quick grenade button right after closing the stratagem menu. Helldivers now also switches to the last active weapon when out of grenades, fixing the issue where they would be holding a stratagem ball without the stratagem menu being open. Fixed some text overlap in various locations. The burning effect applied to the players when a combat walker dies is now a normal burn. The intent is that you should be able to escape it alive, but you will be on fire, so hit the ground. The extraction shuttle can no longer take damage. PC, you can now navigate the super credits with the WA from Super Earth R&D have been utilized. An issue where sample count in missions were incorrectly displayed. Levels no longer generate with blocked areas preventing players' progression. Your ship bridge is no longer cast in permanent shadow. Reduce situations where blue stratagems would bounce when placed next to a detector tower. The Warbond menus now display correct emote and victory poses in the thumbnails. War Medal's cap is now displayed in the UI. Fixed a bug where the Helldiver armor would appear invisible for other players. Refined player reporting UI. Fixed issues where Helldivers could be launched into the air if close to a Bile, Titan, or Factory Strider corpse. That was fun though. Fix for Factory Striders sometimes spawn an extra model after being destroyed. Reduce situations where Helldivers could spontaneously die while walking into seemingly walkable valleys on some planets. Fixed rare issue on Arctic planets where players could spontaneously die close to large bodies of water. Fixed Pelican 1 sometimes leaving immediately after any player got on board. Fixed bug where Helldivers could get stuck in grenade idle state after throwing grenades. Fixed superior packaging methodology, not working for other peers. Recent player list will now include hot joining players. Relaxed disconnection policy for PC users. Fixed an issue where previous sessions' player names might not be saved correctly when restarting. Defend event attack origin now visualized when hovering the planet with the defend event on the attack origin planet. Implemented outlines for previously poor readable texts. And finally, some crash fixes. General crash fixes. Fix for a crash that could occur when applying wounds to multiple enemies. PlayStation fix only. Fixed an issue that would sometimes cause a crash when switching between quality and performance mode. Fixed for a crash when a player leaves after their railgun has exploded. Fix for a crash that would occur when rejoining a previous session. Fix for a crash that occurred when trying to throw a snowball in ADS mode. That happened to me once. Fix for a crash when loadout is aborted during hot join. Fix for a rare crash linked to leaving a session while aiming a weapon. And then just loads of known issues, but nowhere near as many issues that have just been fixed in this fucking patch. My god, I've been recording for 35 minutes. I hope I get this video cut down to something reasonable. Sorry for the cursing. I'm not a very good reader. God. Sorry, broke character a little bit. That's a lot of reading. I got some footage of the supply lines on the galactic map. I like this a lot. Look how easy it is to tell how we get to the liberation targets in this current major order. What do you think of the weapon and stratagem balances? I'm going to start using the orbital precision strike a lot more, I think. And what about the spear being reworked, eh? They said they were going to fix that new automaton spawner locking bug, but still, should be much better now. Tell me what your favorite new fix or balance or general patch note is in the comments below. And I'm so sorry it took so long. All my videos have been so short, and this one is ridiculous. I was going to talk about the new warbond in this video, but I don't think I will. So I guess until next time, you can follow me on Twitch at The Very Big Fish, or you can subscribe here to stay up to date with all, or at least most, necessary Helldiver information. And remember, liberty is waiting.